Beulah is continuing on her journey to look for her relatives on the island of Bioko. She's headed for Eureka, which is legendary among the Bubis as their spiritual heartland. To get there, she must trek right through the tropical rainforests of Bioko.
I was feeling really rough last night, feeling hot and cold and shivery, and this morning, when we got at 5 o'clock, I thought, no. And my spirits wasn't high. And then we got to a sty, and I was asked then whether I wanted to turn back. I remember at that point thinking, I must go on. I must go on, I want to do it, and I will pat myself on the back when I have done it.
Eureka is so isolated that few Bubis themselves have ever been there. Yet our genetic tests had identified a Eurekan woman whose mitochondrial DNA matched Beulah's. But as evening approached, she was still only halfway there.
It's absolutely beautiful, but it's not a reflection of how I feel. I feel sick, absolutely grubby, smelly. I'm trying to appreciate the scenery. Every now and again it sort of hits me, am I really here? Am I really in Africa? Am I really meeting relatives? And some days it just seems unreal, very, very far-fetched.
The trail of mitochondrial DNA drew Beulah on. And in Eureka, her maternal relative Consuelo was waiting. After trekking for 2 days, Beulah finally approached the village. The very first person to greet her was Consuelo. While Beulah stayed in Eureka, Consuelo and her family took her under their wing and initiated her as a Bubi. They gave her the tola, the ritual markings of Bubi womanhood.
Face? No. 3 days, red face, my legs and my arms.
They took her to see Eureka's spirit man, who summoned the ancestors.
I couldn't really grip with it, and I didn't try to. It was kind of like just feel, and it was more of a physical, let's, go through this.
The ceremony had left her unmoved.
The heart or the spiritual or the emotional, that wasn't there. And I didn't force it. It didn't happen.
Her family gave her 2 traditional names, Mausanya, meaning to be fragile like an egg, and Lasakero, meaning always contented.
I get this real sense that they're waiting for something to happen, and that's not me.
We talk later, Nick. It's too much.
Any visitor that comes here is kind of like, what can you do for us? What can you bring? I didn't get the same feel that they were waiting for me. as family. It was more kind of, oh, we have a relative, what can she do for us? I grappled with that for a while, you know, gosh, what can I do, what can I do? And it just brings back to, you know, sometimes you need to help yourself as well, you know, show that you help yourself.
How you say? Okay, I say, for many years I have wondered, pictured in my mind, what do my people look like in Africa? And now I can go back to my home in England and have many, many memories. And sometimes if I seem as if my eyes are far away, it's because there's so much emotion inside. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I don't see myself as being one of the women here who would have stayed here and had children here. I think I would have, you know, because of my spirit, because of the way I am, it'd be that kind of first opportunity, let's get out of here.
As Beulah left Eureka, her reconnection to its people was evident. But there was no denying a gap.
If you know where home is, that's enough. You can go back home whenever, wherever you feel like it, and you don't need to be there.
The final leg of Mark's journey was a 500-mile trip west. He was heading for Zinder, ancient capital of the most powerful Kanuri kingdom. His last task in Africa was to try to find out how his ancestor might have begun her long journey towards Jamaica. Beulah and Jacqueline will also have the ordeal of slavery to confront. Niger's former capital owed its greatness to its position at the intersection of the major trade routes across the Sahara and down through Nigeria to the sea. Even today, several centuries since its heyday, Zinder's narrow streets all seem to point in one direction. No one is allowed to forget the wealth and majesty that lies within the palace of the Sultan of Zinder. This was the epicenter of one of the most powerful military and political forces in West Africa. Its influence is still felt today. Mark's arrival coincided with a gathering of Niger's lesser-ranking traditional chiefs. The Sultan nevertheless agreed to give Mark an audience and an important history lesson.
I found out in speaking with the Sultan that a lot of the enslavement that went on in Kanuri land was done by Kanuri people. And in fact, the name that I'd chosen for myself, Kaigama, was the leader of the army that would have been sent out to capture more slaves, which was quite an enlightening moment, to put it lightly. A romantic ideal that I had was kind of shattered. It would have been a beautiful ending to the story to find out that Kanuri people were, you know, strong warriors that were captured by some, you know, invading force from another land. And, you know, that would have been something that would have allowed me to, you know, point the finger firmly in one particular direction.
Slavery was common in Africa long before the transatlantic market increased demand. Capturing and enslaving Africans provided the Kanuri sultans of Zinder with much of their wealth and power.
If you disobeyed the Sultan, he would fight you, and once you were conquered, you became a slave. The Sultan didn't do it himself, he sent the Kaigama to do it. Anyone who didn't belong to the royal family was effectively subordinate to the Kaigama.
The irony of me returning to find out about my slave ancestors and then choosing the name of the actual person who would have been sent out to capture slaves made me understand that, you know, that this is a complex story. It's not one on just one layer.